Hello. Well, we are approaching the end of the year, right? And Christmas is coming soon. So today I would like to share with you how I see the big picture of what is going on in the world with a certain historical review, but also looking at what is happening today. I think what all this unusual thing happening with the American presidential election is just a continuation of a restricted warfare. Unrestricted warfare. That's what I mean. Yeah, I mentioned it in my previous episode that two Chinese military officers, they wrote a book already in 1999, more than 20 years ago, about unrestricted warfare, and it is a strategy of how to beat America. Of course, it didn't say it directly, but I understand it is. And we have to be aware that the Chinese Communist Party has been actually following this strategy. Yeah, I will explain to you why I believe so. In this context, we have to be aware that, as I said before in my earlier episodes, that the Chinese Communist Party has a strategic goal to achieve, and that is before year 2049, that means 100 years after the founding of the People's Republic, China under their control should be then the superpower number one in the world. Now, so they have been consequently working for this goal, very consequent. You should not be, misled by some phenomena on the surface. If you look deep into the essence of all the happening, they have been very consequent to follow such a strategy. Now, say, if we go back 40 years, they knew 40 years ago it was no chance for them to challenge America. Why they want to challenge America? Well, it's very simple. America has, since the Second World War, been the superpower and the strongest power all the time. Yeah, and actually, Soviet Union lost the game, and the Chinese Communist Party didn't want to have the same destiny as the Soviet communists. So they have been working very strategically on this issue. So what they did is they know, in a kinetic war, a conventional warfare or nuclear warfare, a war with shooting and bombing and so on. In such a war, 40 years ago, they didn't even dare to dream to beat America. And even today, they still are not sure that they have a chance, okay? So they developed the other warfare. As I mentioned before, they developed, for example, economic warfare. Suddenly they play as a nice guy, very nice developing country, asking for help from the West, and try to show that they behave. And they got a lot of help. They became member of the World Trade Organization and so on. And the Chinese economy grow and grow. And in this strategy, in this economic warfare, they try to make America and Western Europe dependent on them economically. And to a certain extent now, say if we count from the day they enter World Trade Organization, it's more or less exactly 20 years, they have achieved. A lot of developed democratic countries are now economically really very dependent on them. They have another warfare called the financial warfare. And the financial warfare is the warfare how they manage to deceive, to cheat the Western countries, so that Chinese companies, who are actually have a close link to the Communist Party, but play as quite a normal private company and enter different stock markets in the West, in New York stock, in Frankfurt, in London, and so on. And why? Why they do it? Well, to absorb as much capital as possible. Yeah, the financing. So we have been financing, in a way, a lot of Chinese company. We thought maybe, oh, they are Chinese private company and looks successful. If I invest in that, I can even get my return. But what we were not aware is many of these companies, they are actually serving the Communist Party. They are part of this grand strategy that 2049 China should be the boss of the world, yeah, and according to their condition. So that was the financial war. And then you have the media war. They infiltrate media in the West, yeah, and make sure that through the influence that this media talk more and more in favor of Chinese Communist Party. Also pretty successful. In this past 30 years. I mean, look, I give you one example. For, say, 21 years ago, when they started brutally and cruelly persecute a practitioner of the meditation school, Falun Gong, the Western media almost did not make any coverage of it. Why? Are they so uninformed? No, it cannot be true. But something makes them to keep silent. Now, what is this something? Many, many ways. Yeah? One way is they are very good. The United Front of the Communist Party are very good in making friends. As I mentioned in my last episode, the old friends, the good friends of China. So that's one way. And to make you really feel great, you feel that you are so appreciated by the Chinese, you are so respected by the Chinese, and you also get a lot of advantage. When you come to China, you get a good time, and some of them maybe even get, so to say, fill up in their pocket, in their wallet. So, and this is quite sure. Now, in parallel to the economic warfare, financial warfare, China become richer and richer, and don't think that all this fortune go to the Chinese, hardworking Chinese people. No, a big part of it go to the party, and the party use this money to drive the world, okay? So now, you see, that has been working very fine until 2016. What is special with 2016? Well, Donald Trump came to power. And Donald Trump and people like Pompeo and Mike Pence, they could see through this trick. They say, hey, we can't accept it. We have to, stop this deception. Yeah. So they start to become tough to China. And what happened? Do you think China would change? No. They continue. You see, they first tried to stop Donald Trump, to punish them in trade, yeah, but they did not manage. So actually, in the beginning of this year, the 15th of January, they signed a trade agreement with U.S., which is absolutely to the advantage of U.S. and not China. Yeah, doesn't matter what the Chinese propaganda say, and Donald Trump celebrated the whole thing. But what happened? The Chinese communists would not just accept that. So what happened is it came the so-called coronavirus, the epidemic, or some people call it CCP virus. Is that a coincidence? No, it is not a coincidence. I'm sure it's not a coincidence. Yeah, the virus may not be a weapon developed in the lab, but maybe it was beginning an accident, but at least they make use of this accident, this leak, okay, to weaken the economy of the West. So that's fit the strategy of, being superpower number one, 2049. Now, that is not good enough because they know if Donald Trump gets re-elected, it will be very tough for them because Donald Trump will, through this coronavirus epidemic, Donald Trump is more convinced that China not only no longer our strategic partner, actually is potential enemy or even is the enemy. You see? So when Donald Trump gets re-elected, my goodness, for the CCP, for the communists in China, it will be a tough time for them, because Donald Trump is very much determined to get rid of this biggest gangster organization of the world. So what they do, they mobilize everything they have been doing in the past decades. Politicians who are bribed by them, all the media infiltrated by them, all the high-tech company whom they use Chinese market to flirt with them, to deceive them, to influence them. All these forces were mobilized, and the Wall Street people, of course. So, you see, for example, that recently, for a few days ago, the majority leader of the Senate House, McConnell, he even openly support Joe Biden, although he said some few words like thank Donald Trump for all what he has done and whatever. Now, although he is a Republican, why? He is in the pocket of CCP. I'm quite convinced. His wife, Zhao Xiaolang, is a Chinese lady who has an extremely close tie to the CCP, because her father and the family of her became billionaire through CCP, gave them huge amount of credit, helped the company to buy a lot of big ships, and gave them nice order so that they make a lot of money by transporting iron ore and things like that for the Chinese company. So, and she is the one who actually given a lot of money for her husband, also for all this campaign they have been doing. So this is just one example. There are thousands of them. So this infiltration strategy or unrestricted warfare has been actually quite successful. So now, ladies and gentlemen, and this presidential election is the most unusual one I ever have heard about, and particularly in the case of the voting system computer from the company Dominion. I'm 100% sure the Chinese is behind it. Why? Because this company was bought, part of the ownership was bought by some Chinese guys, and a couple months before election, it was totally bought by UBS, as the Swiss bank UBS. And 70% of the shares of UBS is in the hand of Chinese businessmen. And all these Chinese businessmen, they all work for CCP. So CCP has 70% of UBS. And UBS bought Dominion. Is it a coincidence? No, it is not a coincidence. So, ladies and gentlemen, the world is approaching a sort of final game. So the Chinese Communist Party has now mobilized everything they have prepared in the past decades, and they want to crush the democratic system, the spirit of America, all these great things the founders of America have done. They want to crush it so that they can have a chance to conquer the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you Merry Christmas and God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.